live stream. Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for taking time out of your Sunday evening or Sunday day, or I guess it could be Monday morning for some of you guys. To hop in. I see in chat some of you guys caught the Jake Bro interview. What did you guys think about it? We're just gonna chat a little bit until let people get into the stream, and then we'll cover some of the more significant news. Let's see. It's right now. It's in top chat. Yeah, I got a live chat. That's what we're here for. But no, I appreciate you guys. People are like, yeah, somebody here from Iran. That's dope. Thank you. Let's see. What else? Thanks, Michael Lovell. Yeah. So, agenda for today, pretty straightforward. Yeah, we're going to be taking a look at some of the fighting around Vovchansk. There's been some updates. And yeah, any questions you guys have, we're going to answer. That's what it comes down to. If you guys have questions, you guys know the rules. You can put them in the chat. But you can always drop in with a super chat. That'll sort of put you to the front of the line. This is rest assured, this is not a VDV undershirt. This is some like back when I think Oakley made like surf brand stuff. I got this at a thrift store because it's really, really, really hot here, and it's tank top weather. I don't know what else to tell you. Thanks, Per Hageland. Join us from Sweden. I love it. Again, we're just letting people trickle in. And yeah. I did want to see if any of you guys caught the talk with Jake Bro. Boyd talking back a Jersey Boardwalk shirt. Exactly. Those guys real. Unlicensed. Is there going to be a dummy offensive? Listen, man, you look at enough videos of the Russian infantry, and they're all dummy offensives. Okay, a more relevant question about Russian advances in UltraAtina. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that, because that's not like the prime topic of this. But yeah, so what's interesting is that this UltraAtina Russian advances, this offensive, seems to be one of their main like concentration efforts. And you can see they're trying to expand outward. Though there's some rumors actually that Sodol, the Ukrainian commander who was terminated, that he was actually the commander of the Donetsk kind of region that included this area. And you can see that while he's Russia, as we work back in time, has been making these kind of steady sort of slicing advances, but this is also a lot of empty ground. These are really tiny towns, and Ukraine may be choosing to let the Russians like advance here simply because it's there's not a lot of gains to be had. I'm a little skeptical, right? Places you can see this like Sokil, like yeah, the Russians took it, but what is it? Yevhenivka. But like on the other hand, Putin's objective is pretty explicitly that he wants to that he wants to take as get to the administrative borders of these regions. So, yeah, there's a lot of talk about this offensive in Toretsk. I think Russia may be trying to commit some sort of large encirclement, right? That would make sense. That would explain the continued push near UltraAtina. It would explain the pretty high push near Chasiv Yar. I mean, this would be a massive encirclement, but, relative to something like their encirclement of Avdiivka, it's not unrealistic. It's just going to be very, very time consuming. Yeah, there is a lot of talk in the chat about rest in peace to Pete. Let's see. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. Right, and that's a reference to Pete from Project Constantine. He was a Dutch medic, I believe. Yeah, here we go. So, yeah, this is South African medic, Project Constantine founder Pete Fauché was killed. This is somebody who was doing only medical work. This is kind of one of his viral videos where he talked about the lack of aid being provided, but he was a medic, basically doing medical operations, charity operations throughout the war, and just by all accounts, a really stand-up guy. So it's just tragic that he, lost his life in this war, right? I don't know if anybody thought that 2.5 years later we'd still be fighting it. But there was Pete, out there doing his helping people from day one, and that's a noble guy right there, So yeah, rest in peace to a real one for sure. Okay, so let's see. We got about 400 people here. We'll let a few more pop in, and then we'll really start to chit chat about go over what's been going on in Vovchansk. Okay. Also, has anybody picked up their strike gum on Amazon? Right. We've had a ton of orders. The summer has been great. It's been awesome to see how many people are ordering it, but really reordering it. I think the reorders are really, really doing great for us. We've been talking about getting those other flavors. But if you want, you should definitely pick up the 5-packs if you haven't already. Right, each pack is the equivalent of an entire energy drink's worth of caffeine. 0 sugar, alpha GPC. It's if you need some energy to make it through this summer, as we all do, Strike Gum is what you want. So check it out on Strike Gum, or you can just go to Amazon and search for Strike Gum. Yeah, and more important, thrilled to announce that the Combat Vet News has been redone at last. Now when you go there, you get all the YouTube videos. Boom. Dropping right in there. Right? Of course, you get the members only section, but look at how much slicker this is. Explains the benefits right there of each tier. And then there's your tier. So if you haven't, you definitely want to. Definitely want to pick it up. And we're adding, you can see here, a weekly Q&A. Right? You want to get your questions thrown and addressed, and that's for the idea is that it's for a little bit more like personal or elaborate questions that you might not want to put into chat, or that you want me to really elaborate on. And that is going to be, you can submit your questions the previous week, and then you can see the videos, right? For lieutenant and colonel tier only. So a really nice additional tier. And of course the shout outs and the golden recognition for the colonel. I mean, those guys are just the top supporters. What else can I say? They're carrying, doing the lion's share of carrying, keeping this channel in operation. Certainly no sponsors and YouTube ad revenue not out here exactly loving on us, but that's okay. That's okay. YouTube is definitely doesn't want to see any of this war content hurting people's feelings. God forbid people understand what's happening in their world, right? All right. You guys want to talk about Vovchansk? I think that's what we're here. That's what you guys are here to do. Let's talk about it. All right. So, there's been some updates. First off, this is from the UK. This is today's defense intelligence update. In Vovchansk, the fighting is focusing on the aggregate plant. And this is where Ukrainian forces are attempting to dislodge Russians from this strong point in the southeast of the town. The whole town's they're considering contested. No confirmed Russian advances made around Chasiv Yar in the last 72 hours, and combat's been intense near Ivanevsky and Klachivka. Ukrainian forces reportedly counterattacking Klachivka, making some tactical gains. Right? So, this is interesting, but what's more interesting is when we look at, here is from Chuck Farr, who does some of these very, very quality tactical maps. Let's see if we can, let's see if it'll let me open the image in a new tab. Oh, I love it. Got this Chuck Farr, dude. He's got it over, right? Now, as we've talked about, there's been a bunch of interesting key developments. He talks about the fact that Ukraine is engaging Russian forces trying to infiltrate urban areas of Vovchansk, inflicting losses on concentration points of the Russian 83rd, right? Russian sources saying that morale is abysmal. It's pretty bad. And the Russian 153rd Tank Regiment and soldiers of the Akhmat Battalion, Akhmat, the Chechen warlord forces, mutinied and refused orders to conduct an assault, right? Which is very interesting that Kadyrov's boys, after this terror attack and after all these raids are going down in their hometown, they suddenly say, you know what, we don't want to fight for Putin. Very interesting turn of events. But what's more notable, you can see, again, yesterday, detachments from the 153rd Tank Regiment and soldiers of the Akhmat reportedly mutinying, refusing to go on offensive, right? Continued drone attacks. You can see Russia still kind of holding, purportedly, just this kind of western half, northwestern part of Vovchansk, with actually Ukrainian airstrikes hitting these Russian forces. I think he's using mutiny and refused orders. Russia treats them interchangeably, and I think he is as well. I don't think it's a proper mutiny. I think it's refusing to fight. It may involve mutinying the officers. It's not clear. Because they could have been like, we refuse to fight, we're killing these officers. Tough to say. But what's interesting, too, is the tactical situation in Vovchansk. And here, we'll pull this up here. I'll show you guys the aggregate plant that they're talking about, which has been for quite some time, actually. I think these guys have had it for potentially as many as like 2 weeks, is Russian forces who are holding this plant here, but they're functionally cut off, right? The Russians can only partially resupply them. And if you're a member of Combat Vet News, the video that is dropping Tuesday, I'm going to be traveling, so it may be in there a little early, shows what I believe is Russian forces actually conducting one of these resupply runs, getting more people into there, right? And this, you could see, is the aggregate plant, right? Here's the aggregate plant on old Google Maps. And when you zoom in, I mean, you can see pretty clearly that this is it here. Let's see. Will it let us? Can we get Street View? No. Google Street View never quite made it to Vovchansk. That's okay. No shade. But this looks like the aggregate plant, and you can see Russian forces. It looks like they're driving into maybe this building here. Actually, this looks just about right. So it's a video depicting Russian forces running across this field and into this plant, this part of the aggregate plant. So this is where Russian forces are largely isolated, kind of holed up, a little bit like the Mariupol steel plant. And the rest of Russian forces, again, focused primarily on this western part here. Now, here's where things get kind of weird. Different sources report different kind of locuses of control. This is a kind of a pro-Russian source. And they're saying that Russia controls pretty far into the city of Vovchansk and that they have restored control to the aggregate plant, right? And the Russians actually say, oh, now they're going to push the Ukrainians out of this river here in the south. They're gonna push them over the Vovcha, right? Like push them back over the river. But again, other sources, and here's kind of the another like more pro-Russian source saying, oh yeah, the Ukrainians still holding this foothold here, but they have Russia has reestablished control over the aggregate plant. So it's very, very contested. The whole thing is extremely tough to like really pin down what is going on. And if they are indeed cut off, if they're not. Again, the footage that I saw looked commensurate with a cut off Russian forces. Again, someone in chat is saying the Russian forces dropped a bunch of footage of their vehicles operating in the south, but localized attacks, especially in this war, just confirm that regions are contested and not controlled, right? So, like, again, all of this area that is neither red nor green, both Russian and Ukrainian forces could at times operate within those regions. So I would not sit there and say it's definitive. Footage is definitive. It would have to be footage of like established positions. But it's evidence, right? It is evidence of control, but not decisive evidence. Does that make sense? So again, there's a lot of variability here. By most accounts, Russians absolutely taken massive losses. The Ukrainians are likely taking losses too, but they just don't seem to be at the scale of the Russians. So again, you can kind of see just from kind of the look here that this is a really tough spot to fight in, especially tough for vehicles, right? And this southern area here, this is a difficult location to try to fight because it's forested, whereas everything else is urban. But I would not, urban combat just has a lot of variability. Does that make sense? Anyway, guys, be sure to throw us a thumbs up and a like, and if you're not subscribed to the channel, it does help. Oh, Albert Tremblay is asking about the Liu Brigade. They're still fighting there. As far as I know, they've dropped some footage of the fight there. You can actually follow them on Instagram. And then, they did give the videos, if you were on the last live stream, where they received a bunch of drones. They received the anti-drone weapons from us. And that's just kind of the first round. So, yeah, they've been... they are immensely appreciative for everything we got for them. And I think that's definitely making a difference here. Yeah, there's also talk about the U.S. bases being on high alert. And yeah, let's talk about this story. This is a good one. So let's see if we can find a. Okay, will the Hill try to claim me? No. Okay. According to this report, U.S. military bases have raised their terror alert to their highest possible level. According to multiple media outlets, this includes places like Stuttgart, Germany. Right? And it describes an incident or intelligence is received indicating that some form of terrorist action or targeting against personnel facilities is likely. Likely is an intelligence term that means more than 50%, right? And they're saying, I mean, EUCOM is going to be vague. They're constantly assessing a variety of factors. But what this does, if you haven't been on a military base, and to give you an idea, this is a good perspective. One U.S. official said that it's been 10 years since bases have been raised to this level of threat. And it often means military received an active and reliable threat, right? So, and we know that the U.S. intelligence has been pretty good on this, right? Because remember, they warned the Russians, yo, someone's going to try to attack a major site in Moscow. And Putin was like, go pound sand, which is classy. And then the U.S. embassy told U.S. citizens, yo, don't go out. Don't go out this week. And then Putin was like, hey, these mean old Americans are stoking fear, right? He went on like national TV and said that. And then there was a terror attack. And then comically, Putin was like, you know whose fault this is? It's Ukraine and NATO's. And it's like, dude, NATO publicly warned you that this was happening. Like, why would we tell people like, yo, it's dangerous, something bad's going to happen? It's just, I mean, it's classic Putin. But the fact is that when the U.S. was willing to alert Moscow of this probably means that this threat is pretty credible. The thing with credible threats, and the way U.S. military bases often respond to these sort of threats, is that they will sit there and go, okay, we're changing our force protection measures. So we're going to search more vehicles. We're going to restrict who can come on and off post. We're going to actually search people within the post. Because remember, within these posts, the U.S. forces have military police authority. So U.S. military police can search any vehicle on post. They can actually guard individual buildings. So when you have that, if you're someone who's planning like a terror type attack, sometimes they are a lot more sophisticated than sometimes they seem. They're like, oh, a lone gunman just shot random people. It's almost never that way. They go, okay, someone planned how to get to the site, how to get a weapon to the site, how to ensure that people are at the site at the time you want to do it, right? It takes a level of planning. And the fact is that if you change the process, if you change kind of the how vehicles are searched or where the guards are, or you just mix things up randomly. It doesn't even have to be like you need more guards or less guards, search more vehicles or less vehicles. If you just change the way you do things, it makes it really hard. Somebody who sat there and said, oh, my plan is to get in during the morning rush in a construction vehicle with a fake construction permit, and I'll have my gun in the back. And then they go, well, actually, we're searching all vans. Or, hey, no construction vans today. That could be enough to thwart the terror attack, right? So that is the kind of thing that they're ramping up. But what's interesting is that usually, if you have good intel, it comes with a location. Sounds like other German bases like Rhineland-Pfalz, Ramstein also got, and Baumholder all got notified. But then so did Aviano Air Base in Italy, right? And likely, I think the U.S. military base in Vicenza probably also got alerted. So it's interesting that it's a kind of broad alert. But this has been a very strange couple of weeks, right? It's been, we think about it, it's been 5 years since ISIS was really like taken out, destroyed, kicked out of Mosul. We had to go back underground and operate like a terror organization. There hasn't really been there's been a big Middle Eastern conflict in Israel, but the U.S. is, like, especially the U.S. public is actually notably against it. A lot of the West is really not supporting Israel on this as much as they have in the past. Don't get me wrong. The U.S. is selling Israel a lot of weapons. But the fact is that there's this growing sort of return to Islamic terrorism, something that, again, you think of as being kind of more endemic, like in like the 2015, 2016, 2017, like during the ISIS era, But I think this is part of, and I'll just speculate. Join me in speculating. My speculation is that the Iranians sort of through Hezbollah, Hamas, like Iran encouraging lone wolf terror attacks through this kind of propaganda is like a tried and true method of kind of spreading like power projection, right? The Saudis did it with Wahhabism, where they, created this type of extremist Muslim ideology called Wahhabi, and they spread it all over the world. And as a result, like, it expanded Saudi soft power, and then it also created a bunch of terrorists who were radicalized by the things they saw online, by the things that Saudi-backed preachers told them, by the things that just kind of the cultural milieu that those sites created sort of sprung up, right? And then they behaved in ways that they didn't always like. So Iran runs a similar playbook, and they are trying to radicalize Muslims, and particularly radicalize them in a way that serves Iranian objectives, right? It's not a secret. This isn't like a conspiracy theory. Iran backs Hezbollah financially. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps classically backs Hezbollah, as well as dozens of other groups, Houthi rebels in Yemen, Hamas. So, these guys, they understand that this soft power projection, and they want to make Tehran like the hub of a certain subset of militant Islam. So I think that's what we're probably seeing here is something sort of like the long ties back to Iran. Again, this isn't like Iran bad. Like, let's be honest here. Iran is not run by good people. At least not by the rest of the world's cultural standards. The Saudis aren't better. They're just on the other side. The Saudis, like, I don't know if you guys saw, I almost don't want to talk about it because I think they'll demonetize me or like spike the stream, but you guys should Google the lawsuit by the 9/11 survivors. They've won some victories in court. They've released some previously unreleased documents that include some interesting information about the Saudi government. or at least people who were high-level officials in the Saudi government. It is worth looking into. Again, I know you guys aren't really here for that. Yeah, B-21 radio, that's a good way to put it. The Saudis are better than the Iranians, but not by much. Not by much at all. The governments. You know, people are people, right? I've met some truly excellent friends who are Iranian, and I've known some truly excellent dudes who are Saudi. But their governments, just like our government, you know. Listen, you guys watched the same debate I did. I don't know if either of those two guys were speaking for themselves, let alone speaking for any Americans, you know. Okay, what are the questions do you guys have for me? Right, I'm here to answer whatever you got. And as always, you can throw up a super chat, and you know you'll jump to the top of the line, so to speak. Okay, people keep asking about the A10, and I'm going to keep talking about it because, like, the A10 is a very close air support, emphasis on close. And in this war, because everybody has man pads, you can't get close enough for an A10 to work, right? You can't. An A10 would get torn to bits by a SAM or any kind of man pads, an IGLA, anything. Yeah, so like, and that's why the DoD was like, we got to get rid of this. And then a bunch of like old A10 pilots were like, you can't get rid of old Betsy. And it's like, yeah, dude, yeah, we have to. Just like we don't have ships with sails, right? We cannot fight against an actual country with this airframe. I'm not wearing a Russian blue and white striped shirt. It's some Oakley. It's just hot here, man. It's just hot here. Okay, there's also a question about South Korea. You know, it's a little South Korea thing is a little weird. Because it's not clear. Like, they could do a lot if they wanted to. That's what I would say. South Korea could do a lot if they wanted to in terms of help. The question is, are they willing to? Because their primary objective is to have a deterrent force against North Korea, right? Like, they need to have a conventional force that can check North Koreans. And North Korea has a large conventional force. So the South's got to decide. Yeah, it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Sure, true. But is it worth it for us to divert our troops there? And is it worth the optics for our troops to kill North Koreans? Right? So that's kind of the issues that they're looking at. But the South Korean arms industry is big. They're sophisticated. They're very sophisticated. And we're going to see. Your guess is as good as mine. What the South will be willing to do. Never discount, though, the fact that the South, they hate the North so much that sometimes even the North's pettiness will elicit like a real response by the South. Like, the South may just support Ukraine purely to prove a point to the North. Right? Because the North will never hear the end of it if they back a winner. And the South may be like, no, North Korea gets no victories here. I mean, South Koreans following the North Koreans around everywhere and harassing them without end is basically true. Now, if you want to know about troop number estimates, that's also an interesting question because that's a huge question. I think initially the North Koreans are going to send a small contingent. It'll be like 1,000 or 2,000. But bear in mind, the entire Russian monthly mobilization campaign gets them like 25,000 a month, right? So, but I think North Korea is going to send like 1,000. And then they might sort of see if the Russians treat them fairly, if the payment that they requested actually shows up. They're probably going to have some like senior officers sort of size things up about what they can do and what they're capable of, right? What sort of is expected of their soldiers on the battlefield. But I think the South or the North will want to scale it up. One, because they want to modernize their military to fight a current war, not the previous one. And Russia has learned the hard way. They've gone through 2.5 years of lessons how to fight a high-tech, sophisticated enemy in the form of Ukraine. And North Korea is like, I want to learn all your tricks. And then the Russia's probably like, I'll teach you guys everything I know, but they've got to come here and they got to fight the hard way. Okay, what are some anti-propaganda... Oh, Duca asks, what are some anti-propaganda resources and techniques you'd recommend, specifically in regards to Ukraine, but general resources would also work? Okay. Some ways... So, one, you need to kind of weigh claims against the other things that you know to be true, right? So the more preposterous a claim is, the more skeptical you should be of it at baseline, right? Reality, like, has to be somewhat self-referential, right? So, like if someone in Stockholm was to tell you, I saw Paul eating at a restaurant just now, you'd go, well, that seems really unlikely because, like, he's on a live stream. So reality says he can only be in one place, and I know for sure he's in at least one place, right? So the more absurd a claim is, the more you have to weigh it. Then you got to ask yourself, if X claim is true, what else would likely be true? What other things would we see and hear if the claim in this statement is true? And then don't Google those evidence, right? Because, like, if it's like if you were to be like, if no one landed on the moon, there'd be no footprints on the moon. And then you Google, are there no footprints on the moon? Well, the only person who's answering that question are conspiracy theorists, right? But for example, if someone said, oh, America never landed on the moon, and you'd say, okay, if that were true, then America's rival, the Soviet Union, would call them on it, would say, I don't think it's the case that this happened. Or our current rival, the Chinese, would likely say, hey, we just had a probe on the moon. We didn't find the American landing site. So you should, those things would be fairly simple to check. Has a Chinese probe ever seen or photographed an American lunar landing site on the moon? And did the Soviets ever claim that we didn't land on the moon, right? So that's a good way to do it, right? Weigh the propaganda. And then, of course, you got to check the source. If the source is routinely telling things that aren't true or exaggerated, particularly in an area where you know something for sure, like an area of your particular expertise, you say, okay, I know this thing really well, and this source gets it wrong a lot. So therefore, it's reasonable to be skeptical about other claims this source makes. Okay, sorry. That's a lot, but that's the thing. If this is true, what else should be true? Is it true? Rod RR, do you think if Chinese becomes a majority in the U.S., for example, in 100 years, we'd be able to impose a system like in China to get rid of minorities? Okay, so I think you're describing the Chinese, like, cultural genocide against the Uyghurs, where they put them in re-education camps. But I don't really understand the rest of the question. If Chinese become majority in U.S., for example, in 100 years, would be able to impose a system like in China. This I have a hard time understanding what you're asking, man. Patrick's like the great replacement theory, but that's the confusing part. If it was just, but like he describes, but he's like, oh, it already happened. Like if everyone was already replaced with Chinese, could we get rid of the non-Chinese? I don't know. Yeah, it's a troll question for sure. It's just stupid. Like it's a bad troll. Right? Is it worth it buying strike gum? Absolutely. Yeah. And here's the thing. I like, don't take my word for it, but no, I see in the data we get, like, for every 5 people that order, one of them reorders within a month. So, and I think it's like 10% of our reorders are within like a week. So that was, to me, the data is clear that people love it. Okay. Ibanez, thanks for the 5. He asked, did the S500 go down? I don't know. I haven't looked into it hard enough and weighed the evidence. I'm not sure the consequence. How much more equipment can Russia lose before they stop? They can't even defend their borders. Russia has Russia's ability to fight through tech losses is substantial. It's found a very, like, a way to fight that's not tech reliant. So whenever there's no, if there were a single system that would cripple the Russians, the Americans would have given the Ukrainians the tools to take it out. Rod's like, I am serious. Okay, well, 100 years from now, I think the aliens will be ruling over Earth. So the answer is no, because human beings won't be making decisions. It'll be the aliens and AI. They'll be partnered. Elon Musk is going to signal the aliens with Starlink, and then he's going to introduce them to his Twitter AI trained entirely on the Twitter data set, and they'll be horrible, and they'll talk to each other, and human beings won't be allowed to make any more decisions. Oh, I'm just laughing. Listen, I'm having fun here, okay? I'm having fun, and frankly, the troll is paying me. So, you know, yeah, hell yeah. Listen, at this point, we all watched the same debate. I'm hoping. I was sort of hoping that one of them would take off their mask and be like, I got you guys. I'm a lizard. The lizard people rule you. Like, you really thought these animatronics were real people? Like, come on, man. We're all lizard people. We live in the center of the earth. Yeah, we just come out of the Arctic Circle. Ooh, who do I think wins Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson? Okay. I think Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul comes out on top. Okay, Peter Desmatias says, I am not a troll. I believe you. Thank you. Thank you for the 10. And thanks, Rod RR, for believing me about Elon Musk and the aliens. You know, even if they were lizards, if it turned out they were lizards, it still wouldn't make that much sense, honestly. Because, like, the lizards would work harder to make convincing human facsimiles. And the fact that one of the human facsimiles was able to, like, talk very clearly and very quickly, just say things that weren't correct. Maybe they were like 2 AIs, right? Like it was like 2 government AIs trained on different data sets. So one of them produced like nonsense gobbledygook that wasn't really an answer to the question, but had like much stronger grasp of grammar. And the other one like struggled with syntax and couldn't actually get the face to move convincingly, so it just sounded really quiet and sort of trailed off. That's what I think it is. They were two AIs competing with each other. James says, will Ukraine striking nuclear early warning systems, strategic bombers, nuclear cable submarines, possibly force Russia out of the war due to their strategic deterrence being degraded? No, I don't think that would happen. The U.S. would not allow that to happen because deterrence depends in part on a balance of power. And there is a minimum deterrent that each side will accept. So nuclear early warning systems, I talked about this in a video, they're blinding Russia, right? Like if you take out nuclear early warning radar, imagine you're in a showdown at the OK Corral, right? You're standing across from somebody and you're waiting to see if they draw their gun so you can draw yours and shoot them, right? That's kind of the nuclear mutually assured destruction. But imagine somebody pulls your cowboy hat over your hat. You can't see if the other person's drawing their weapon. So all you could do is just at the first sign of the sound of leather rubbing against metal, which could be anything or nothing at all, you just pull out your gun and shoot. So that's why the U.S. is like, don't take out nuclear early warning radar. Same thing with strategic bombers or nuclear capable submarines. Their fear, Russia's fear, would be that the U.S. would use Ukraine to do that and then launch their own nuclear strike. So they won't pull out of the war. The U.S. would absolutely be furious. James Kelly, what do you think U.S. aid will look like after the election? Do you think Europe can make up the difference? I think Europe will be able to make up the difference. They're ramping up their ability to support now. There's some things that only the U.S. can do. And I think even after the election, look, the Republican Party now, they were real assholes about it, but they did get the aid passed. Mike Johnson's a Republican. He's Speaker of the House. He's a pretty Trumpian Trumper. And that dude got that aid across the finish line. So I think, and once it passes the House, it goes, right? Trump got impeached the first time for holding up House-approved U.S. aid, right? Because of the power of the purse delineation in the Constitution. So I think it won't be the disaster people think it is. But it could be. Trump is really, 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 really hard to predict how he will behave. It is so hard. Okay, I could do like one more question before I got to get out of here. All right, Zahar, if humanity wants to beat AI, we have to get smarter and seekier. No, we have to get dumber because the AI is only trained on human data sets. So what we need to do is feed the AI dumber and dumber shit. Ozzy asked, what turned Johnson? I think what turned Johnson was, I think he saw the reality on the ground. He thought maybe U.S. aid was, don't underestimate the ability of our elected leaders to be stupid. And remember, congressional staffs have been cut in half. So he's being fed by he has very few smart people on his staff. Who, by smart, I mean capable of understanding these issues, which is more than just intellect. You need experience. And he also, I think he may have thought that, oh yeah, this aid to Ukraine is like helping him around the margins. And I think somebody sat him down and was like, yo, this is a serious, this is what'll happen. But more importantly, I think he really wanted to get that liquid natural gas terminal in Louisiana opened up for his big donor, and I think he played hardball to get it. And I think he also wanted to get that border deal done, right? He thought he almost did it too. He almost got that border deal done. Like he was going to pass the aid. I think it was always the case, but he wanted to squeeze that border deal. And when he couldn't do that, he wanted to squeeze that liquid natural gas terminal. He pulled it off though. He got it done and he got what he wanted, except for that border deal. But what can you do, right? Trump killed that. That sounded like real legislation. That would have actually changed things about how the border operates. Wild. All right, guys, that's going to be it. I haven't eaten dinner. I haven't eaten lunch. So I'm sort of dropping off. But thank you guys for joining me. Be sure to hit subscribe on the channel. Check out Strike Gum. Come over to Combat Vet News if you haven't. That is the way to support the channel. Twice a week, uncensored combat footage, deep analysis, and now a once a week Q&A. So thank you guys. Maybe we could throw a link in the channel. Let me see. Let me see to the spiffy new Combat Vet News. So you guys can come check it out. Yeah, let's see. Boom. There you go. And thank you guys so much again. I really